Hey, hey, beautiful people. Happy Friday. Yay. Happy Friday. I'm so glad to see you. Just want to give a couple seconds for people to jump on. I know it's the holiday season and people are, coming up for air after the holiday on Christmas and Hanukkah. And I know Kwanzaa is, making its way, is happening and all the things. And people are getting ready for New Year's. I know a lot is going on. And what's great is that this is perfect time, and hopefully for you, and definitely for me, when we talk about get your life today, and it's time to live life on your terms. There are so many people that have been calling me, texting me, having conversations with people really want to take hold of their life, really wanting to live on their terms. A lot of my friends and I have like spent time talking about what can I do as the year is about to start, just to make sure that I am creating the life that I know I desire. And that's what I desire for you today is that you are able to feel equipped to live the life that you desire to do it, the way that you desire to do it, and be able to like not procrastinate on it, not wait on it, but go ahead and get it. And so, if you are watching today, say hey in the comments. I'm so excited because I'm using Restream, and this is the first time we use Restream in a long time. So they've changed the platform. So I just like type in the comments, hey, how you doing? Type in the comments where you are watching from, just so I can get a sense of like, okay, how does it show up on my screen? This is me, playing around with this new look that they have. So if you don't mind, do that. And as you are here, I want you to also just consider if you're somewhere that you're comfortable and you're somewhere where you can actually jot some thoughts down. I would love for you to do that because I think it's really important that, we live in such a consuming society and we're always consuming things. That sometimes we don't take the time to jot down what resonates with us so that we can actually take action. And I want you to be able to think about what is going to be that one thing that you take with us. Hey, Janae. Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you're here. Yes, you better represent North Carolina. So yeah, I really want us to be able to take away something from today so that we can go and be great. And that way that this won't be something that you just consuming. You know how we do? We just consume a whole bunch of stuff and then we're like, oh, that was good. And then it's like, but what you gonna do? Being an activator is like one of my top gifts. And it's really important that when I work with people and when I'm doing things like this, that I leave you with something. So if you are able, I really implore you to stay into the end. This will be for an hour, to stay until the end so you can really get the benefit of everything that we're going to talk about today. Obviously, if you are going to tune in on the replay, you can put replay in the comments if you drop in and see this recorded on either Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And then you can let me know that so I can just get a sense of who came after the fact. But if you can watch the whole thing, great, because I really want you to get the most out of it. So I've shared a lot about living life on your terms, and I just kind of had this nostalgic moment. So last night, myself and a few friends were at another friend's house, and we did a Get Your Life session. So I say Get Your Life Coach. I have a book called Get Your Life Today, and so I've been called the Get Your Life Coach among friends, family, and clients that I've worked with personally over the years because I'm always very passionate about people taking control of their life instead of letting life happen to them. And last night was nostalgic because back in the day, I used to use whatever paper was in the house to make sure I'm laying out people like, yo, we use the back of gift wrapping paper. It's like, oh, that's a clean sheet. We don't have any post-it paper. Let's use that. And I like to call it putting your life on the wall, if you will. And so you might not have a wall, you might not have post-it paper, but if you have a notebook or if you have your notes app on your phone, I want you to put your life on your notes today so that you can be prepared to change your life and have something different happen. So I always like to share like what my journey has been. And so for those that don't know, early December 1st, this was my year anniversary of leaving my 9 to 5. And so most of you know I am a speaker, author, all the things, but speaker and consultant is what I did full time, and it's still some of the work that I do now in my own business. And I had been doing that for about 2 years. Not 2 years. I'm tripping. 5 years. What am I? Do you know how long you were doing it? I was doing that for 5 years with this particular company, but I had been doing coaching for a long time. But with this particular company, I was doing it for 5 years, was doing a lot of travel and training. And I loved what I do. And so, like, as I'm telling you my story, I'm telling it in a way so that you can get your nuggets and write down what resonates with you. And then we're going to talk about specific steps that you can use to really take life by the horns and live it the way you desire. So, there's something about loving what you do. You know, some people say, like, you should love what you do something that you love. But I was doing something that I love and I was suffocating. You can do something that you love and feel suffocated. You can feel suffocated for a number of reasons. And for me, the reason was I was not owning the boundaries that I needed to create in order to make what I loved be something that I actually enjoyed, or I actually desired to enjoy fully. And what I mean by desire fully is that I wasn't able to enjoy it fully because I was tired. I was tired. I was burnt out. I was always saying yes to things that I love to do. And that is very typical of myself. Like, I know myself, but it's also very typical to you. If you're listening today, you're probably a lot like me. You are someone that has been a high achiever. You, like many of us, grew up in a time where when you were in school, you were looking for that gold star, that checkbox by your name, by whoever was your educator, to say, like, you did a good job today, you did all your work today. And so I always desire to have that gold star, to get that external validation. And so I was burning myself out unknowingly. It's subconsciously, I didn't even realize it, because of looking for all the external validation, looking for, someone to say, you did a good job, you're a team player, Desiree is not lazy, Desiree is going to go make it happen, we can count on Desiree to do it. And you can, but if I could be real with myself, not really, because I didn't have the capacity to do what I was doing. But when you have been on a hamster wheel and you have been running, 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 hustling, 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 you have normalized it. I had normalized being an achiever, and not even just an achiever alone, because that's not wrong. It's not wrong to desire to achieve and accomplish things, obviously, right? We get a lot of value out of that for our lives. At the same time, I was being what we call in positive psychology a hyperachiever. I was embodying hyper achieving, using that not just to simply achieve something that was going to enrich my life, but some things that I was chasing was really for external validation. Versus when I sat with myself long enough, you all, I realized there were some things that I really did not desire to do. You know how you say, like, oh, as long as I'm doing something I love, I can do it all day. Like, nah, you don't want to do it all day. You got other things that you desire to do in your life. It's almost like, overeating cake. You can love red velvet cake with pecans, that's me, or cookies all day long. But if you eat it every day, every meal, all the time, you won't get sick of that cake. And so that's what was happening. And so I think there was a lot of tug and pull for me, because it was something I knew I was called to do. It's something that I enjoyed. Even when I would go places, audiences could tell, like, this is your wheelhouse, this is your genius zone. And it is. At the same time, when I was doing it at a level, at a pace that was just not manageable, and it was beyond my capacity, unless I was going to have a lot of other supports in my life to allow it to be something that I could handle at the rate that it was at. There was a time where I was, traveling like 70% of the time. I was gone often, and I had to get to a place where I had to recognize, as you may have to recognize, that I created that world for so long, for months, or, partially while I was there, I put so much of the responsibility on my employer. I put the responsibility on them. Like, they always, everyone's asking me to, or they always want me to do things at the last minute, or blah, 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 right? At the same time, it was an employer that was still very much one that I didn't realize until later, but I actually had the power to say like, hey, that's not going to work. I'm already stacked. If it's a last minute thing, I can't do it right now. And still be respected and seen as someone that is a quality person in this space. And I had always dealt with over the years this fear of, looking like I'm not doing enough. And I honestly believe that it's something that I actually just said this in a LinkedIn post this week. I honestly believe that this is something that, as women of color, as women, and even those that maybe you have come from like a lower social economic background, we find ourselves in spaces that are new, that we're looking to prove ourselves because we don't want to be looked at as other, or we don't want to be looked at as someone that is not of someone that's a good fit. And so it's subconsciously, that was a lot of, what I was doing those things for. And so that might resonate with you, is that sometimes we're doing things so that we can seem like it's like we're fitting in, or we can seem like we're the person that's doing great things, but we're inside resenting it, inside making ourselves sick, inside making ourselves unhealthy. And so a sidebar of that is that I and my two friends, we started a nonprofit dance company. This was our 20th year in business. Yay. This is our 20th year in business. And with that being said, I have experienced being a business owner for like the last 20 years with a 6-figure business, a nonprofit business, and doing that while also working full time. And I was still doing work in my own private consulting when I wasn't working for my full-time job. It became too much. And honestly, my full-time job wasn't the normal 9 to 5. When anybody out there that has traveled or done trainings or worked in that life, I've worked in that life even beyond this position or that employer. I worked with many other employers over the years where that is what I did. Like, I was a facilitator, I was a trainer. I went out, and you work sometimes, during normal work hours, but most times you work at after hours. You might have to pick some weekends, it happens and it gets long, right? And I had to realize that I was choosing this life. Like, I was choosing to always be busy. I was choosing to stack myself. And so I think the rubber hit the road for me the most is when, and I've told this story as well, that I had high blood pressure for the first time in 2023. Went to the doctor in May of 2023, and I had never had high blood pressure. So I mentioned that I have a dance company to show you all that I've been an entrepreneur for a while, but at the same time, I also want you to know, like, I have been working out. I have been an athlete most of my life, right? Between running and dancing and just being active. I went to school for business and dance. And so I've always been a mover. But let me tell you all, when I started being on the road as a coach, consultant, trainer, I worked out way less. I went from like working out 10 hours when I was full-time executive director, a company director at my dance company. I was working out like 10, 13 hours a week. It was a part of what we did. We were in class, we're teaching classes, we're working on choreography, all of that. By the time I got to the position I was in, I did it very seldom. And so I wasn't working out. I'm traveling so much. I'm eating everything. You know what I'm saying? And not like that. I've been a pretty clean eater the last couple of years. I was a pescatarian. I've been a plant-based vegan since March of this year. So when you're on the road, and many of you, if you've been living that life, you know what's up. You on the road, you gonna find the best things to eat, but at the same time, you are finding yourself eating things that you don't know how much salt is in it and all the things. So I was eating out all the time. And then when I would go home, I would be home for like a medium amount of time. And so if I'm only home for a medium amount of time, I'm likely going to eat something out so I don't have food just rotting in the fridge. And then I'm back on the airport. I'm back on the plane. And so with that came stress. So like not working out as much anymore. The food that I was eating wasn't always going to be homemade, that is clean. And then I'm like stressed out from the back to back. I could tell stories all day around this, but I mean, if you have ever been someone that has overdone it, right? Overthought how saying no could benefit you, you know what it's like. You know what it's like to say yes, even though there is a quiet no. And in your spirit to like not do a thing. And I mean, I did ridiculous things. I stacked myself. I'm on one side of the country. The next day I got to be on the other side of the country. I was out of the country, coming back in the country. and dealing with all of that and still having to prep, not missing, planes being canceled and having to drive hours to where I got to go because you got to show up. Right. And so it was something I loved. And when I got in the room with people, I felt like the refreshment of it all. But it's like when I had to do that logistical pushing my body, it was something that was causing stress. And I was doing it so much, wasn't even thinking about it. I'm like, I've been healthy my whole life, whatever. So again, we rewind to 2023, went to that doctor's appointment, and they said, you know what? Your blood pressure high. And I'm like, what? This never happens. I was like, I must be rushing today. She was like, okay, we've never seen this before, but let's check back. I get to a doctor's appointment in September 2023. Doctor's like, blood pressure is high. I'm going to have to put you on something if it continues to be like this. You need to monitor yourself and tell me what's happening in the next couple weeks. That was a defining moment for me. I had never met anybody that had any pill for anything. And I'm like, I'm not going to start now. And so even though she said check back in with her, I did not. I actually got the blood pressure thing to check myself on a regular. And then I was like, I need to change my lifestyle. And so that's when I committed. Like, I'm leaving my 9 to 5. As much as I love what I do, I'm going to find a way to be able to still do work with them, do work that's similar outside of that company, and be able to have the quality of life that I have right now without the pressures of the time being stacked like it was. I literally created the world that I desired. While I was sitting in a space for a few years, living that lifestyle, feeling like I don't know how I'm going to get out and not really wanting to get out because I loved it, I literally was living a life that I could have changed at any moment, but I was moving so fast, you all, that I didn't make the changes. And so it had to be something like the doctor talking about, you about to be on a pill, for me to actually stop and be like, okay, I'm not doing that. So what needs to change? And so, stress. I'm like, okay, this is really stressing me out. You about to lose your job, right? I had to say it. I get this dance, but I was like, I need to change this situation. And so I changed from being full-time to being a 1099. My old employer is my client. I went to honing in on working out in a way that was going to make me back into a position where I'm actually having real workouts, sweat workouts, doing the things that I had normally done back in the day that I wasn't doing anymore, lifting weights, all the things that we're supposed to be doing to take care of our bodies. I got back into that. Dance, yoga, hit all of the things because I wasn't moving. And then the other thing is changing my diet. I went to being plant-based vegan, and all of that was in the last year. And so when we get back to this September, went back to the doctor. I don't got no high blood pressure, nothing. I actually lost 10 pounds and I wasn't even trying to lose weight because I've already been this size for a long time. But as a result of me changing my diet, all of that, cholesterol is on point. That already was. But the blood pressure was my big measuring stick. And I'm like, and I told her what I did. I'm like, yo, I changed my life literally. And all of this is to say, when you talk about living life on your terms, you get to decide what your life is. So that's actually going to be the first thing I want you to jot down. If you are writing this down, or if you're taking thoughts, you get to decide that your life is changing. That's the biggest thing. You don't have to succumb to what's actually happening right now. You get to be in a place of decision and decide that if I don't like what's happening, it can change. So you get to decide what you desire to change. So as we're going into a new year, I want you to think about like, well, what is the thing that I would love to be different? What's the thing that if I could make this change right now, and it's not even if you can, but if I got like and put all my energy in changing this, what would I do differently? Right. And so that's what I want you to consider as, we're moving along today. Like, what are the things that need to change? And for me, I had that defining moment. And perhaps you have a defining moment. Perhaps you have something that helps you know, like, okay, this is the thing that I know has been holding me back. Maybe it's something in your financial life. Maybe it's something in your work life. Maybe it's something in your business. Maybe it's your personal relationships. Maybe it's your health. It doesn't really matter where, but I think it's really important for you to think about what is an area of my life that if I changed it, it would really help change all the other things, right? What would be something that, okay, if I change this, a whole bunch of stuff, it's like a domino effect, would change all the things. And that is going to be the thing that I implore you to focus in on, to narrow in on. If I made a shift in this area, then that would help make all these other things that I know, I desire to see for it to happen. I'm a big believer in be do have. And so if any of you have heard of be do have, a lot of authors use it. A lot of authors might call it different things. But essentially, we have things in our life based on things that we do. And we do things based on our being, based on who we are, based on how we show up in the world. And I talk about this a lot in workshops because we get stuck in the doo-doo. We get stuck in the doo-doo because there are things that we want to have. And we're like, oh, I got to do. Right. And so I was focusing so much at the time of like, oh, just self-care. If I take care of myself, there's always going to be times when you're busy. And even that thought alone, it wasn't going to benefit me. Like I'm always busy. Right. And so because I said this, I'm always going to be busy. I'm like, you just got to do self-care and just allow the busy times to be the busy times versus like, what would be that big BHAG, right? This big, hairy, audacious goal. Like, let me do that. A lot of times we be playing. We be doing these small goals. And it's not that small goals are wrong, but I'm really interested in doing radical changes that have small habits attached to it to help the change be a lot easier, like scaffolding radical change. But what I'm saying is like some people will do these very small goals and it's really to avoid the big thing that they need to do. And so, for example, me leaving my job was a radical thing to leave working full time because as many of you already can imagine, you're thinking about, okay, what's my financial life going to look like? I've been running this side hustle. And this is actually my third time taking a leap. I've left full-time work to do consultant work on the side before. So this is not new to me, but it's been a while since I've done it. And so you also get to be afraid and have all these thoughts rushing you when you decide to do something that is big. But at the same time, I knew that I've done the little things before and it still yielded me high blood pressure. You feel me? Like I was doing things like taking vacation time, taking time off, or I would do the things like, oh, I'll take this month and I won't do as much travel and that'll help me catch my breath. But it's like, it still was the same in terms of the workload and capacity. It's like, that's not really changing for me. And so I was trying to employ these little things, and I don't think it's wrong, but I think that we do it, and I did it from a place of fear of doing the big thing. And a lot of times we know to do the big thing. And so I'm really big on, if you're writing anything down, I want you to say to trust yourself. And if you're a person of faith, I'd say, trust the Holy Ghost, trust the Spirit of God within you, because you hear what you need to do and you don't be doing it. Yes, I do mean you don't be, right? You don't be doing it. We don't do it. And there are times where I know I needed to slow down and I felt the tug and pull to, it's time for you to, make a shift. And it's like I heard it, but life was happening. I don't have time to think about that right now. I know you've had that thought. I don't have time to think about that right now. I got to do X, Y, and Z, or that feels too hard, or that feels too whatever. And so you just kind of ignore it, right? But it's crazy how it works because God will allow things to happen so you can't ignore it no more. And it's like, I had to have somebody tell me you had high blood pressure, you about to be on a pill. And I'm like, wait, let me revise my life. And it wasn't anything I didn't already know. And that typically happens to you too, right? It's you already know, you just ain't did it. And it's not like you're someone, again, I have been healed of hyperachievement. I'm unlearning so many things that I've been used to doing over the years. And I'm also a recovering people pleaser, all of these things. And so with that being said, it was hard because I didn't want to disappoint people. I didn't want this rejection, or I didn't want people to feel like I wasn't doing my part or I wasn't showing up for the team, especially being someone that has grown up in sports like dance and running, volleyball and things like that. I have a great sense of team, and having my own nonprofit business, I recognize you want people to go hard in the paint, right? Like you want people to show up. It's just like all hands on deck. At the end of the day, though, if I am no longer alive, I can't be all hands on deck for anybody, right? And so like it had to be that point of kind of like the rubber hitting the road, so to speak, so that I can make sure that things were doing what they were supposed to do. And so I really want to implore you all to consider what needs to change. What is that radical change that it's been tugging on you? And I want you to practice being still, practice getting quiet with yourself, and ignore the thoughts that come that say, well, that's delusional, or that's not realistic, or you can't do that right now. Because when I tell you, everyone under the sound of my voice has done something that seemed out of the ordinary or not possible, and somehow you did it. Right. And so it is possible once you decide. So in my book, and I'm going to lean down because I have to like plug in my computer. I feel like it's unjuicing a little bit. I wrote in my book, one of the chapters of my book, Get Your Life Today, 7 Success Hacks for Life, Leadership, and Business, is confidence comes when you decide. And sometimes we are looking for that strength to come before we make a decision, but commitment is a driver, because a lot of times when you commit, you have a very strong why. Example, I have been talking about, I need to make some shifts from my full-time work into my business because this is too much for me. Like people didn't know I was at I would be at hotel rooms, maybe enjoying, like getting off of a plane and such. And there would be times where I would be sitting on the edge, like in tears, like in a, like anxious, like, I don't know if I can keep traveling every day like this. I don't know if I can keep going like this. And so I want you to think about, what is it that can be your commitment factor? What can help you drive commitment? I had a strong why. I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I also no longer desired to be on a pill. Like my health is like number one. And the commitment rose in me because it's like, I'm not being on no pill. I don't do that. And so when you have a very big don't, like, I don't do that, that's not the way I'm living. Like it has to be heavy enough for you to make the decision, and everything is going to come, right? So the decision factor is where it's at. Like when you decide, everything else will come. Okay, I need a little Bellman break, not for real, but change my microphone. Let's see. Okay. If you're watching, can you put in the chat to make sure I know you hear me? Because I had to plug in my computer. I want to make sure that I can still be heard. So if you're watching, can you say, yes, we hear you? And that'll be a blessing, because then I know y'all hear me, because I had to change my mic out. And if not, then I just need to like move closer, because I want y'all to hear me, because my mic was tripping. That's how you know it's good, because my mic was tripping. Can y'all hear me in here? I'm going to give y'all a second. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me, so I can keep on keeping on. I just want to make sure I can be heard. Okay, thank you, Gervais. Okay, cool. So when it comes to making a decision, I want you to make a decision. What is that radical thing? And you are already going to feel fear. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Coach. Katina. So thank you for letting me know. You have to make sure that you are in a space that no matter what happens, this is what I'm committed to doing. I'm not playing no games with my life anymore, because when we miss those moments, we end up missing out on the time and that we can't get back, where we could have experienced more of what, God has for us in those spaces. I don't feel like, I'm missing out on my blessing because I waited so long. I think, everything happens for a reason. We not going, nothing gets wasted. As a friend of mine would say, nothing gets wasted in our life. At the same time, when you hear it, it's like, I don't ever want to be made to have to change my life because something so drastic happened that now I have like this big gap that I have to, like, this uphill battle. And it doesn't have to be an uphill battle. And so I want you to breathe through what's difficult. Like, breathe through what's difficult. So what made it really easy for me to make the decision is because I had known other people that had made similar transitions in the same position I was in. And because we made some similar transitions, I knew the possibility was there. So that helped. And I say that to say, once you decide, it's like God sends you all the things to help you move your position along. I mean, your decision along. So as soon as I was like, it's time, this is what's happening, I got on the phone with, people to talk about different options to bring in income. I was considering who my clients are already. What is an offer that I also would want to add to my list of offers so it can help me continue to increase my income so that my income level can be similar to what I'm used to already. And so everything started coming up the way it needed to because I made a decision. And so you can spend time being afraid of making the decision, or you can not care about taking the time to make the decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, you cannot waste that time and you can get moving. You feel me? Like, and I want you to leave this live not wasting another minute, another day, another hour. So in the last couple of weeks, people in my age bracket have passed away. I've had a cousin that had passed away. One of my potential clients, he hasn't passed away, but he was telling me about one of his coworkers that's in our age range that had passed away. And then prior to that, there had been a couple of other people in my age bracket that I've seen, but I'm not close to them, but they're like a friend of a friend that has passed away in my age bracket. And so it has rose something up in me like no other. I believe that death like helps us learn how to live our life as well. And with that being said, it has made me be very intentional with this. I'm not wasting another day, another time, another day, another year, another hour, another week, being afraid and wondering what would happen instead of living life and just see what happened. It's like living like you ain't gonna die. And I have had this audacity or this boldness or this thirst to see how it would happen. And I'm sure if you're anything like me, you have too, because you started things. You have been an achiever. You have been a high achiever. You have done a lot of things. Like, I've always enjoyed the rush. I know some of it is for validation, but some of it is because I'm adventurous. I like to do things. I was 17 years old and was at our senior class trip. And I was a senior class president and wanted to see us go on a fun trip. So I had the whole class vote. And one of the places we wanted to explore was Jamaica. So here's this urban inner city public school. And I'm like, yeah, let's go to Jamaica. We ain't never did it, but let's go. So we raised our money for 2 years, like selling candy so we can go to Jamaica on our senior class trip. So it was a small group of us that was able to go. And so we went. And there was an opportunity. This sounds so bad. I had to tell my parents this like way after it happened because, parents, y'all be worried. Well, I'm a parent too, so that happens. But the point is, I had the opportunity to swing off of a cliff, you all. Swing off of a cliff into the water and swim to shore. Now, I had taken swimming classes, but I can't say that I was like Olympian style swimming. Like, I wasn't going to die. Like, and that's what I told myself. I was like, Desiree, you only got one chance. Who knows if you're ever going to come to Jamaica again? You don't know how to swim that good, but you won't let yourself die. This is literally what I'm saying. I'm 17. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, you're 17 talking about you ain't going to let yourself die. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I took the rope. It was like, a part of the attraction. Took the rope, swung off that rope right into the ocean. And before I did it, though, I eyed the people doing it just so I could get a sense of like, okay, this is the direction they're going, so I won't die. And, I underwater swam and did like a terrible freestyle. But I didn't die, and I'm here to tell the story. And so I say all that to say a lot of times we need to get the information that we need when the fear of is this possible comes up. So for some of us, information will help us feel more confident about moving forward in the decision. But I want to implore you, before you even get information, make the decision. It is power in making the decision. Probably about I don't even remember how many years ago this was, but 2017. So I paid off personal debt of $83,000. I talk about this in my book. And it took me 8 years to do it, but I paid that debt off. But it started with a decision. And let me tell y'all, I was raggedy at first. I had raggedy decision making when it came to that area. And that might be the same thing with you. You have been acting like you're making decisions, but you ain't making no decision. You feel me? Like, we say we want something, but wanting something and committing to something is two different things. If you commit to something, you about that life. You're going to do it. If you want something, you're not for real. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I really want some ice cream. You know what? I'm about to go get me some ice cream. Like, which one is it? Which one is it? I really want to live a free life. Okay. I'm about to create my free life. That is the energy, right? And so how can we make sure that we are creating energy that aligns with decisiveness? And then that way, your brain is going to look for what you focus on. We get what we focus on. So you're going to look for what you focus on. Your brain is going to look for the things that align with your commitments. If you are focused on the fears of what if this doesn't, it's okay. It makes you human. But if you don't train your mind to think like that, your brain is going to keep looking for what is not what you don't want to happen. This is when people are afraid of the bottom going to drop. And that's happened to me in different areas of my life, feeling like that the bottom is going to drop. That's in relationships, but that's a whole nother story. I'm not there anymore, but I was in this place of feeling like, oh, if I meet someone, I feel like the bottom's going to drop. And so I'm afraid of, moving forward. That was a while ago, just for all those that are watching it. Please don't DM me. But actually, I do want to talk about everybody that knows me. So even my private clients, like when they want to talk about relationships, it's the same talk track. I always like to talk about, that law of attraction and just the way that it's important for us to give out the energy of what we desire to bring in. So the whole point is, like, we don't get what we desire, we get who we are, right? And so we want to be a person that attracts the things that we desire in our life. And so when we make commitments, when we make decisions, we're literally attracting everything that we need to make that decision come to pass. Does that make sense? It's almost like that automatic when you say, I want to move. So when I took on this job with my previous employer, I desired to move. I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the time, and I desired to roll. And I love Milwaukee, and I actually suffered a lot from feeling like I was turning my back on my community. Some people trash talk Milwaukee, and they be like, blah, blah, blah. I'd be like, unfollow or hiding that on my timeline, because that's another thing. I don't like to bring in like negative energy around things. But the point is, I enjoyed my life living in Milwaukee. It's home, it's family and friends. Yes, things weren't perfect, but I've lived in a couple of cities at this point, and I'm like, it ain't perfect nowhere. It's about the life you create when you're in a place. I guarantee in my hometown, wherever you live, if you created a different life, you wouldn't be experiencing what you experiencing. I don't care what nobody say, period. So that's my Sermon on the Mount for that. But I want you to consider, how can you make sure that you are decisive about the commitment? And when you do that, things are going to come. It's going to unlock everything. So when I was looking to pay off debt, the moment I decided I was ready to pay off debt, stop playing games, girl. Stop being out here overdrafting, girl. Stop being over here not, you know what I'm saying? Like with whole degrees. And I know there's people out there, whole degrees, jobs, you real successful and you broke. And that be happening. Like, we're human beings and we make mistakes and we don't always navigate every area of our life correctly. And that's why when I say living life on your terms, what's going to be that thing that's going to help create more of what you desire in all areas, because you tighten up in one or two. And so when I pay that off, it took 8 years, but it did so much for me. It helped me know that it was possible to be out of debt. It helped me to create a discipline. It helped me to be more cautious and, focus around the intentionality around money. Right. And there was a time when I was, afraid of doing it because I didn't think it was possible. And I thought that I wouldn't be able to enjoy life, again, with all the things we be afraid of happening instead of just making a decision. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, like, I bought a new car while I was still paying off debt. My sister got married and we did, we was hanging out. We did all the things. So like, I was able to enjoy life, but it took me so long to jump on because it's this fear of like, what if I don't enjoy life? What if I blah, blah, blah? It's like, girl, just start doing the thing, right? And that's the same thing to you, girl, whatever. Just start doing the thing, because not doing the thing is having you where you are right now. You feel me? Like, you're where you are right now because you're not doing said thing. And if you decide I'm ready to do said thing, everything you need is going to come. It's like suddenly, you all, and this is not to over spiritualize, but suddenly, I believe God has created us to be very creative people and to be industrious in all the things. When I decided that I was going to roll, it was like easy. It was so easy. I remember when I rolled and made the transition to what I do now, I was like, this was really easier than I thought. And even prior to leaving my 9-to-5, while I was still in it, I decided to create better boundaries. And when I would say, hey, I'm not able to make that meeting because I'm traveling, and I wanted to eliminate being on Zoom calls while driving. I know we do it, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to be at work, just do a 6-hour training, jump in the car and have to hurry up and be on something. Can't look at the screen. People asking me questions. I'm trying to figure out, where is this airport? It's overload. And nobody told me I had to do it. It was on my calendar, but I can decline it and I can say, hey, send me the notes. I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be on my way to the airport, what have you. And that was like a new thing for me. And so I was in such fear and so like tight about articulating what I desired that I was inside suffering because I was stressed about not appearing professional or appearing whatever. And it's like, I don't got to worry about appearing nothing. I am. I am a professional. I am this. If that's who I am, I don't have to worry about appearing to anything. Let me get what I desire. Let me get what I need. And so I got what I needed. And I was like, yo, that was easy. We create so much havoc in our mind. And a lot of it stems from our childhood experiences. I'm not a psychologist or a counselor, but just I have done a lot of study around neuroscience, positive psychology. I'm a positive intelligence coach. And a lot of the research for that is surrounding neuroscience and the way our brain works. And some of it is from childhood, and some of it is just from, traumatic experiences that we've had. And so it can be a trauma response, but it can also just be conditioning, right? That we're conditioned to say yes all the time because we're looking for the cues from the people in the room, our parents or whoever that we respect, to make sure like, hey, are we doing this right? Right. And so I didn't realize how much that comes into our adulthood. I'm like, yo, I'm giving people too much power in my life to control how I think, what decisions I make, what questions I have. All right. So I want you to consider, what can I decide? Everything else is going to come. Right. This is good. I hope this is good. If this is good to y'all, I see y'all in the chat. Look, because I was trying not to read it because I wanted to keep going because this feels good. I'm preaching to myself or teaching to myself. It feels good to me. So if it's good to you, good. Let me know what's resonating to you in the chat. So decide. And the other thing, and I'm looking at my notes, is learning to protect your time and energy. So learning to protect your time and energy is going to be really important once you make this decision. This is the part that I like to spend the most time with when I'm working with people. And I spend a lot of time even when I'm training people in habit change or organizational change, is that you have to protect your time and your energy. So I have a framework that's called BOLD. That stands for being, owning, leading, and doing. And so when you protect your time and energy, this is the owning part of the framework that I work with people with. And the owning part of the framework is, how can you own your time, own your energy, own your decision making? And it has a lot to do with keeping boundaries. And if you want more time, you have to create it. If you have timed yourself out by cramping your whole life, then you get to decide what's no longer important, that's what's not edifying my life. Excuse me. And I do that periodically. So if I decide that, sorry, I needed to manage spending more time resting, like I spent most of 2024 resting, almost to the point, and I told, a lot of my friends, I'm like, yo, this is like different for me. I'm like, not everywhere all the time. Like I'm used to like, oh, I gotta pack my bags, I gotta get on a plane, or even when I'm not, I'm catching up on administrative things, or I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I literally spent so much time with a lot of space. I had given myself the ability to grieve. I had a death earlier in 2024 where one of my favorite uncles passed away, and I had the time to grieve. I decided not to work and give my body the space to rest and to grieve. And it was new for me to even have the time and the thought to make that a priority, because I know a lot of us, the way our lives are structured and the places of work that we're in, I've heard people many times not feel like in a lot of traditional workplaces that grief time isn't as I don't want to say respected, because I don't think it's not respected, but we don't really take in consideration the journey of grief and what time and space people really need. And in my mind, I was like, yo, I'm creating a life where I decide how long I desire to be out, versus feeling like, okay, I can't keep canceling stuff, I got to show up. No, I get to decide. And that was really important to me. And so I was protecting my energy by, if there are things that I need to say no to, I'm going to create a business and lifestyle. I mean, a business that surrounds my lifestyle. And my lifestyle is, I want to be able to have work where if things need to be switched, I'm not working myself to the bone where I end up being the one burnt out, tapped out. So I had to be intentional about what I create. And then knowing our energy, I didn't always take time to feel what was going on with me, because we're so used to just going, going, going. And whatever you decide to do, think about what is the feeling, or what is the energy that you desire to carry out that goal with. So what I mean by that is that when you decide, hey, like for me, it was, rolling out of my 9 to 5 and working in my business. And I never say working in my business full time, because I don't want to create a traditional full time. Like I have to define what full time is. I never want nobody to think it's the full time that we're used to, because I desire to allow the imagination to run wild about what could full time in my business look like without me feeling like it's full time, So with that being said, I had to think about like, okay, I'm going to go into this. How do I want to feel while this is happening? And I decided what I didn't want to feel to help me think about what I did want to feel. And so I knew right away, I was like, I don't want to feel anxious. I don't want to feel like my schedule is back to back. And so I wanted to feel space. I wanted to feel free. I wanted to feel like I could regain and take power back over my life. And so I created it in that way. Like I block time, like I don't have meetings during these times. And you can do this even if you're working a 9 to 5, because again, even though I had the itch, and I could have jumped early on, I didn't. So what I did do in the meantime, like I said, I was doing the little things. I was creating the boundaries, and I don't want to say little to minimize it, but because I knew what I needed to do. But it did still allow me to have a practice of learning when I had the best energy, with what I actually wanted to do. And I had to reintroduce myself to myself. I've told a lot of people that I've caught up with this year that this is the year that I got back to me. And I started to be better at learning and understanding what I really desired to do, and what are things that I was doing because people were asking me to do, or I made some obligation. I've made some rule. I made a rule in my mind that this is something that I have to do. And so the more I understood what I actually needed and what actually worked for me, then I was able to create more of that when it was time for me to roll off. So I want you to think about, how can I protect my time and energy? It may not be in quitting a 9 to 5, but I've coached people that have, like, I coach people that was like, we've had our conversations and it's like, yo, where you are is really toxic. you either need to have some come to Jesus moments with your boss, and this is the way that you can get feedback. Or you also need, you also need to consider other places to go. And so, this particular client decided, like, you know what? I feel that the need is really for me to leave, because they also desire to do other things in their career. But they felt, sometimes, a lot of times we feel this loyalty to the people that we work with, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just as long as we're not martyring our own lives, or it's not to our demise. And that's what was happening to her. So she decided to roll. But I've had other people that I have worked with, and they stayed at their job, and they just really got better at creating space, not feeling guilty for creating space between meetings, not feeling, that feeling of anxiousness that they had to show up at any and everything, and not trusting their own enoughness. And that's another thing. Protecting your time and energy has a lot with, sometimes we don't do it because we don't think we're enough. Like one of my clients, she was burnt out. She was straight up burnt out working where she was working. And she wanted to stay where she was working for a number of reasons. And we spent a lot of time just talking about, okay, where is this feeling that you have to work all these extra hours and do all these extra things coming from? And it came down to the root cause being not feeling enough, feeling like I have to prove myself. And when we went through an exercise of seeing that, what do you have to prove? Like, you're already amazing and you're already like killing your goals and results. And this is like a disease to me, that we feel the need to prove ourselves. And again, I believe it comes from this external validation. And I've been there as well. And I'm sure you have too, needing to help feel better about yourself by looking for the cues. People say that they don't look, and I just feel like people are pretending. Honestly, we do look for cues. We look, you haven't been raised by anybody. You haven't worked a job. We look for cues. We're human beings. Like, we know how to do that. We look for cues, and that is what sometimes will change our disposition. And so we get to decide, regardless of the cue, how can we be true to ourselves? And that takes practice, you all. I literally been unlearning so much that I've been doing. And there's no such thing as perfection. So there will be times where I haven't honored myself, but I believe that now it's less frequent. And if it does happen, I'm quicker to be like, no, Desiree, that we're not doing that today. And that's the goal, right? It's never perfection, because that doesn't exist. What it is that how can we get 1% better? All right. So protecting your time and energy, when you think about the thing you have to decide to do, how are you going to protect your time? How are you going to protect your energy? Is it going to be the boundaries around how you have meetings? Is it going to be boundaries like, I'm leaving work at this time? Is it going to be boundaries in conversations? I talk about this a lot. Is it going to be boundaries in the conversations? What conversations are you having? Who are you listening to? That's podcasts. That's people in your family. That's your friend circle. Who you listening to, right? If you want to live life on your own terms, your dreams will fizzle out because of who you are listening to, who you are talking to, who are you being around, because that will influence how you talk to you about you. That will influence how you talk to yourself about yourself. And so when you're talking about protecting your time and energy, you get to create boundaries and say no. And sometimes you don't have to tell people, I want to start saying no to you. It depends on the relationship, right? So there are some nuances with that. Relationships are art and a science. When it comes down to it, though, you get to decide like, oh, this is how long I'm going to speak to this person or be in their space, because I need to decrease, negative self-talk. And I know a lot of it comes from when I'm having conversations here. Or some of you need to start watching trash TV. So we can say it's a guilty pleasure. We can say whatever we want to say, and we can lie to ourselves all day long. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what anybody say. That stuff affects you. Yes. Okay. You're not going to live a life where you never watch something that you enjoy, but can you change your taste buds to enjoy more of things that are not going to have your mind subconsciously thinking things that are not healthy for the desires you have? I learned this a lot when I was paying off my debt. You realize the negative money mindsets that you may have. And with that comes with you don't get the results that you want. And you wonder why. And it's like, oh, because I think having money is wrong, or I think being wealthy is wrong, or I'm scared people gonna keep asking me for money if I make money. You start thinking about things. So you got to be careful about what you listen to. And even when living your life, there were times where I wanted to leave a a 9 to 5 over the course of my life, because I told y'all this is the third time I've done it. And, when I would talk to certain people, they'd be like, oh, you want to do that? Well, what are you going to do? And it's their tone, it's their disposition that would cause me to start being fearful. It's almost a projection of their fear of not being able to do it landing on me. And now that I am more aware of that, like I don't be afraid of it, but I know that there are only a few people that I'll talk to about the things that I dream to do and desire to do, because they'll give me the energy of, oh, let's explore, like that's exciting, like whatever, versus giving the probing questions that could drum up fear and keep you from actually doing it. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about, and we have a few more minutes. I hope this has been good to you. This has been good. Please put in the chat what has been good to you, what resonates with you, what other thing. If you feel comfortable, you totally don't have to. I'm not that person. I'm not the process police where you got to, or the sharing police where you got to share everything. You don't got to do that. But you can put in the chat if you're comfortable, what have you decided to change? What do you want to change? Or you can let me know what resonates with you. That'll be awesome. But this last thing is, if some of you have heard of the book 12-Week Year, I just did an event in Milwaukee in my hometown when I was here earlier in the month, based around the 12-week year. So it was an event where myself and intimate group of ladies, we talked about the goals that we wanted to set in the 12-week year. So 12-week year is a book. And he talks about in this book how you can set goals, not using this 12-month system, but to literally take the one goal that you want to spread all across 12 months and put it in 12 weeks. So the 12-week year is like, get real hard in the paint. If the decision that you said you desire to change and make right now in your life that you want to see in 2025, consider what would it look like to accomplish it. Literally accomplish it in 12 weeks. And you can pick your start date. It doesn't have to be January 1st. It can be January 6th. It can be January 13th. It can be whatever. You can pick a time in January. I would implore you to do it earlier rather than later, but take some time and think about what are those bold, aligned goals, the things that you feel like are aligned to your life right now, that you can focus on and do something intentionally that is going to move the needle on the change that you desire. So for me, when it was leaving my 9 to 5, when I had decided to do it, you got to call, you got to make phone calls, you got to give people heads up, like this is about to happen. I also, did a lot of financial planning in the sense of like, okay, financially, what do I need to bring in revenue to be comfortable? How often do I need to work to feel good about this? And I was very conscious about not overstacking my schedule so I can have room to build other parts of my business, as well as spend time with family, spend time with friends, take care of myself, like do other things that I enjoy in life, because, that's what life is about. And so when you're thinking about what you want to do over the 12 weeks, it's important that whatever you choose, I always tell people don't choose more than 1 or 2 goals, because 3 is big. But I've been hanging on to 1. Like, we doing one thing. We're doing one thing. We are not about to be doing all the things and then be like lackluster. So whatever you choose, like one of the women that was with me at my event, one of the things, she chose 3 things, but decided that third thing could wait. And I was like, okay, well, out of these 2 things, what is the most important? And she told me which one is the most important. And I'm like, okay, make room and time for that the most, and let everything else be icing on the cake. And so that is the premise of the work with the 12-week year, is that you're making the top 1 or 2 things so important that you desire to not make everything else important. Like, let the other things fall off. Now, obviously, you have to keep good hygiene. You got to do things that are like good for your life. You got to do the things, right? Like you got to keep your regular, normal life and schedule happening. But you also need to consider, how can I say no to things that are like eating my time? Look, eating my time, so that I could make this the thing. I wake up and I go to bed feeling very good about making some moves in that area. You will see something happen. My transition was literally a 12-week transition. It was a transition that went from September, well, it was a little over 12 weeks, but it was around September-ish to like December. And so like, it was a 12-week transition, like, and it worked for me. And so, but that was like my number one. This is all I'm focusing on. I can do other things, but everything that pertains to, rolling off is what I'm most focused on. So the things that I desire to see happen, happen. So I think it's really good that if you make sure that you are doing the things that matter most, that you are making everything else less important. So it's really important to do that. I am so excited that you came with me, and if you want to work with me in your life, you can go to my website. My website is www.desiree.com, and so you see my name is on the screen. And you can go to www.desireecocroft.com and you can sign up for my mailing list. I have a couple things that are coming down the pipeline. So some of you may know I had a great first time retreat out of the country this year in 2024. And so when I was doing that, I was like, you know what? I want to do it again. And we're going to do it in Mexico again. So I have a retreat coming up in 2024. 2024. I did it to retreat in 2024. I'm doing another one in 2025. I'm super excited about it. It's going to be 5 days, 4 nights in Mexico. It's actually at the same resort that I did last year. And it's amazing. It's an amazing resort. And it's going to be an intimate time. This is a women's only situation. And it is going to be some workshops, some experiences. But I would love to have, you all that are interested to show up. It's going to be in October, but to bring in deposits and to secure your seat, that has to happen, between now and January. And right now I have an early bird special for you to be able to secure your spot for that retreat. So if you already know, like, hey, I want to pre-plan how I want to make rest, reflection, and all of that a priority this year. And I need to create that time, because it won't happen just because you decide last minute it's going to happen. You have to plan for that, be intentional about that. So if you go to my website and jump on my mailing list, you'll be able to get all the updates for that. So go ahead and sign up for my mailing list. And when you sign up for the mailing list, you'll be able to get information on that. Again, it's desireecocroft.com. You'll get a pop-up and you can add, you can get added to my mailing list. So that's one thing. And I'll be doing a Get Your Life Academy. So you all know, Get Your Life Coach, I've been doing that for a long time, and I have my book, Get Your Life Today, but I'll be starting the Get Your Life Academy in January. I'm super excited about it because I'll be walking through this academy for the course of a couple of weeks. How do you have this guide on the side? That would be me, to help you really take on this living life on your own terms, earning what you desire to earn, and then making sure that you're doing it by living boldly, living out loud boldly, because that has been my life. And it has been my desire to see other women do that for themselves versus feeling like they can't have the things that they desire. This will be the last thing I said. One of my coaches, shout out one of the coaches I've worked with over the years. I'm gonna shout out Natalie Bullen because I love her. She posted recently about a book that she read, and I just downloaded it. I listened to it over the holiday season, the last couple of days. And one of the things that spoke to me in this book is about wealthy habits. And so one of the parts in this book about wealthy habits is that, when we commit to something that will, rich people commit to being rich. And so I was like, oh, this is good. And so it just kind of brought on that committal part. But you also create communities around you to help you achieve what you want to achieve. You almost have to you get to create a different circle that is aligned to where you desire to go. And when you don't create circles that are intentional around the life that you desire to live, you are less likely going to actually live that life because it's the same thing. Like, if you are desiring to, if you're desiring for marriage, we were talking about this the other night because, I tend to work with people that want to keep talking about stuff. So when, people talk about marriage or people talk about another job and you are only in a community of people that are talking down about relationships or feel like, they can't trust people. And that's fine. I'm not knocking that people have, growth and things like that to obtain because, it's important for us to recognize that. But I think that when we are saturated in environments, whether that's physical environments, people environments, talk track. We've created these environments that have kept us where we are. And if you want to have something different, you have to literally move yourself into a different place, but you also get to move yourself with a different mind. There were people that would often talk about, oh, I want to move away from whatever city, or I want to go get a different job. I've had clients that said they wanted to change their job, or they wanted to change where they live because they were feeling like, I just need something, new. But I honor what they desire to have because I think it's important. I also wanted to make sure that they got really aware of who they were being so that they can take a new person where they're going. Because it's different when you the same bitter person, you the same person, whatever, you go into a different job or you go into a different city. You could. Now, sometimes you go in different places and the environment does shift who you are, but most times I believe that it's not necessarily that place that changes you. You changed and then you were in a different place most times. And sometimes there is a power that environment can influence you, but I really am a believer of helping people change who they are so that they can actually show up differently. I think that allows you to be the person that's more responsible for it versus depending on the environment. I'm not depending on the environment to change me. I believe the environment can help foster change. 100%. Environment is big. It's almost like representation matters. The reason I paid off my debt so many years ago is because a really good friend of mine paid off her debt and she looked just like me. And so I'm like, yo, we do that. This happens. People from my city that went to the school I went to that, we in the same place. Let me stop being out here, bro. And so it's really important that it helps to foster change. But I think too many times we try to depend on that to be the reason that we change when something in us has to change as well. So again, I don't think it's wrong, but I think it's important for us to take responsibility for who we're being. I hope this was enjoyable to you. I enjoyed being on here with you. I can talk about this kind of stuff all day long, but I want to keep on holidaying it. So again, please join my mailing list if you're interested in hearing more about my Get Your Life Academy that starts in January. I'm so excited about what I have in store for you all. It is an academy that is going to be specifically for women that desire to be more bold and live life on their terms. I want to be that guide on you so you can have a transition where not only you accomplish goals, because if you're in my Get Your Life community, you already know how to accomplish goals. Even when I was with my friends last night doing some, goal setting work, and when I was with the group of women that we had an event earlier this month, I'm like, you already know how to do things. Like everybody in here, everybody listening, you already know how to do things. It's about how do I show up differently versus having goals done and not feeling like I am aligned with myself. You can start a whole business and hate it because you have not shifted. You could get a new job and hate it because there's something in you that still needs to shift. And I want to be that guide on the side to help put a mirror up in front of people during that change so that they can actually catapult that change, quantum leap their changes, because there's something in them that's different. And so I'm excited about seeing you in my Get Your Life Academy. Again, go on my website and then be added to my mailing list, and I'll make sure that you get the information that you need when we actually launch. And if you're interested in coming to Mexico, come through. It's going to be an intimate group. I had 5 people last year, and so this year I'm shooting for about 10 or 20. So 10 or 20, it just depends. I have like 10 rooms. I actually really like intimate environments and creating intimate spaces because I feel like people are more relaxed. And I find that a lot of people like myself, high achieving leaders, done a lot of things, have a lot of things to unpack, feel more comfortable in those spaces. And I am much like I am right now. I am much one of those facilitators that enjoy getting to the root. I don't like a lot of breath. Like I used to be like that, like want to teach 1,000 things, but I'm really into like depth work. Like how can we get to the root of what's really keeping you from unearthing your genius? so that we can deal with that and get that done. And so I'm really into that way more. And so intimate spaces really yielded. And then if any of you like live in cities and you're thinking like, Desiree, this would be so good to do there, let me know. I'm really interested. I've been picking coffee shops. Like when I had my event a couple times over the years, I would do coffee shops that have couches and things like that. I did a co-working space with the ladies I worked with earlier, and then my friends, we were at a friend's house, so that made it really comfy and cozy. But I really love doing things in intimate spaces. I would love to play with the idea of having a couchy coffee shop intimate space that's bigger, just so that I can reach more people, but it still have this essence of flexible seating and all of that. So that's just to give you an idea of what's going on in my mind as it relates to my desire to impact as many women as possible, and people for that matter. But most of my clients are typically women, and really desiring to see people live the life that they desire without hesitation, and taking back their power, the power of their voice, the power of their decision making, and all of that, and not letting another day go by. We're not doing this anymore. Like, we not doing this no more. So, okay, look, it's so hard for me to leave you. It was good talking to you all. I will go live more often. I'm getting back on my live tip. It's been a while doing lives on LinkedIn and Facebook. I go live on YouTube often, so you can check out some videos I've done on YouTube, because I stay on YouTube pretty much. But I'll come back in here. This was fun. I hope you all enjoyed it. Take these things with you. Feel free to re-listen to the recording and put replay in the chat, so I know you got to it. And enjoy the rest of your holiday and New Year. And hopefully I'll see you at my retreat or at my Get Your Life Academy in January, or just in general, in real life somewhere. All right. Go and be great. I'll see you the next time. Bye.